excited to be here with you this afternoon. I'm going to move out of the way so I can see the presentation. But we're a team, and I am so excited about my team members. They bring lots of subject matter experts to this, and I'm really excited. So let me just kind of tell you of why I actually started my company. I was working as a facility director for one of the major facilities here in the city. I had responsibilities for clinic operations as well as residential treatment facilities. And at the time, I was a member of the IFMA, which is International Facility Management Association. Many of you might have heard of that organization. And what was it? I went to one of the meetings, and they mentioned that there were going to be 10,000 facility managers that were going to retire from the industry within the next 10 years. Actually, 5 years at that point. So I was extremely excited to be entering into this operational kinds of positions. I have my master's in healthcare administration, and so it was a little off the beaten path, but this is really a second career for me. I'm super excited, and safety is just a natural for me. I enjoy compliance. I enjoy making sure that organizations have the right tools and resources to keep their employees safe. And I just like to make sure that when you leave your home in the morning that you can go back the same way. And so that is just my motto. My motto for the company is safety first, safety always. And that is just something that we would like to help you know, and you already know that, but as you are estimating, it's really important to make sure that you identify some opportunities to ensure that you put the right pricing and the right tools and resources in your bid to make sure that when your employees go home at the night, they leave the same way that they come. So we're really excited to be here, and what we're going to do basically is we're going to talk to you about how you can be a superstar estimator. You already are superstar estimators, but we want to just kind of give you some additional resources and tips on how to do that quicker. So I'm going to start it off, and then Safety Dave is going to come up as well as Joe, and we're all going to add comments and as we go along. So feel free to ask any questions. This is a very informal presentation, but what we really want you to do is to walk away with some valuable tools and resources that you can go back to your office tomorrow and make sure that you start using. So here's our team. We've already been introduced. I've been in business for 6 years. Just recently received an award for the city of Kansas City to provide some safety training for them. So my company is super excited about that. We're going to be offering classes like fall protection, scaffolding, PPE, hazardous communication, and we have an array of trainers such as these two gentlemen that will be offering these classes, and so we're super excited to be able to do that. Dave and Joe will also come up and tell you a little bit more about their companies when they have them. So we're going to talk about how to quickly identify safety hazards and standard projects. Top 5 safety contingencies that should be factored into your estimates. How many of you are looking at safety now as you are doing your estimating? So a lot of you already are, and we just want to make sure that we just provide you with some additional tips, and I believe that we will be able to do that. We're going to talk about hand protection. Do you think about hand protection as you are bidding projects now?
It's required on more and more jobs now.
Absolutely.
Gloves are required on more and more jobs every day.
Right. So, and Joe, thanks so much for bringing those gloves, but he's going to talk in a lot more depth and detail about hand protection. That's something that some of the smaller companies, I think, overlook. And this is one of the things, I know a lot of you, or some of you are from larger GCs. This is really geared to help you help your subcontractors as well, because you want to make sure that they have the safety resources. Oftentimes, if they're like me, they're a small business, they are doing the accounting, they're actually doing the training, they have so many hats. But these are some opportunities and some tools that you'll be able to take back to them, so when they come and present for your jobs, they'll be able to stay safe. And then if we have a little bit of time, we're going to do this group activity that says safety pays. It's on the OSHA site, and I'm hopeful that you will find it very beneficial. Okay, so we had a video, and I'm just going to tell you about it because I spent probably 5 hours trying to get this video embedded into this PowerPoint, and it just did not work. Have you seen that before? Have you tried a presentation and it's taking you forever to get the video? I've done it so many other times, but for whatever reason, it did not work for this group. I'm so sorry. But it's a really cute 1-minute video clip from Casino Royale. You remember that James Bond movie? So there's a scene in that movie where they're on a construction site, and the bad guy is running around with a gun. James Bond also, sorry, is that his name, James Bond? I got this. Okay. So he's running around, so there's lots of shooting. There's lots of bulldozers that are going into buildings. There's lots of high climbing on these cranes that are going up into the air. Lots of shooting, and at the end, everything just kind of blows up. And so, have you seen that on some of your construction projects, where at the end, everything just blows up into a big, huge fire? So
Every day on mine.
Every day on Dave's, absolutely. So, but unfortunately, it would have been really cute to tie into this presentation, but we weren't able to do that. But if you get a chance, it's a great movie to just kind of see if you hadn't seen it before. So why is safety important in estimating? So when workers stay safe and whole, that really impacts your cost. And it actually has a direct cost on your business. And we all are in this business to make a profit. Is anybody else in the business not to make a profit? Yeah, someday, absolutely. So we're all in this business to make sure that we make a profit. And if our workers are not safe, we are not going to make a profit. And so that's one of the things that we want to make sure that when we're estimating, that we include our safety colleagues in our collaboration early on when you're doing the estimating, is that you really take time to bring in your safety colleagues, because they know the latest trends, they know the latest OSHA rules, they know the manufacturer's reps that can help bring in the products and services for PPE and those types of things. So you want to make sure that you have really good relationships with your safety personnel. Also, it's important to make sure that when you're estimating, that you are looking to make sure that you keep your workers' compensation costs low. You want to reduce medical expenditures, smaller expenditures for return to work programs also. It's also important to include safety in the estimating portion, because you want to make sure that your products and your services are not faulty, and that you can accommodate your jobs and make sure that your workers reduce and minimize their risk for injuries. So you want to make sure also that you, because when there's injuries, let's face it, you have to have another person that you bring in, you have to have other overtime costs, and so there's just so many more costs associated with when your employees are not safe and you are not thinking about that on the front end. So I'm going to go ahead and ask Safety Day to come up and just kind of take it from here, give you some examples, and just kind of talk through how safety is so important on the front end of estimating.
Thanks so much, Shannon. Welcome again for being with us tonight. Hope we didn't ruin your supper yet. There's got a few more slides on it. Take care of that. I'm not that. Here we go. Let me get to where my stuff is. Understanding the scope of work, you already mentioned that a little bit. Take out those bid docs and go through them thoroughly with a safety professional so he can identify if you're going to have to spend a bunch of money on fall protection, trench protection, whatever it might be. When I first was asked to present here, I'm like, I have contingencies. And I'm like, wait a minute. I think about every time that somebody's told me, that's not in the budget. That's not in the budget. We didn't have that in the job. And it drives me up a wall. Most of these jobs that I've had that told to are 30 million plus jobs. And the cost we're talking about is not really that much sometimes. But if it's not in the budget, it's not in the budget. I guess I'm not a money man, but I guess you can't just pull money out of the sky. So Okay, all pre-work activities. That's, you get on some of these jobs, like, you don't have bend and flex yet, you're done, right?
Yeah.
You don't have mandatory bend and flex every morning, but there are some contractors out there, if you're a subcontractor and you're going to work on their jobs, you better plan on 15 minutes, and really that's a half an hour of the time workers get to work every morning, because they're doing 15 minutes of bend and flex, which I love. It really helps everybody stay safe and prevent sprains and strains, but it's definitely a little bit of a cost that you see up front. So you gotta make sure that's in the value. We talked about gloves, and they're not just, jersey gloves. You can buy, 39 cents a pair. They're cut resistant gloves, different levels. So you gotta make sure you know what those gloves cost, how many workers you got, how long your job is, and figure that into your bid, right? So that's just some of the many things that some of the the big general contractors have that you gotta comply with. And so many people miss that, and some of them are big subcontractors, clients of mine. They say, well, we didn't have that in the job, Dave. I'm like, well, you didn't look at the bid specs very well. So just think about that kind of stuff. The PPE requirements, they should be pretty well all across the board, but certain jobs require certain PPE. Some of them are going to the new hard hats that cost $140 versus your $29 hard hat. Be aware of that. That's on the forefront. Safety's ever changing and always for the better, of course. I don't know what else such as site-specific stuff goes, but let me go through some more here. Like I said, get your safety guys in there to help you bid these jobs so you don't miss nothing. I'm on a job right now down at Children's Mercy. They're 8 stories in the air, and we have to have suspended scaffolding. They didn't know how to protect the workers from until we got a scaffolding expert in there. Okay, they're going to be 8 floors or 8 stories to the ground. So you got to make sure you got that in your job costs. It's expensive to bring out suspended scaffolding or any kind of special scaffolding. What did we talk about here that day? We had a lot of good stuff that day.
Cost-wise?
Yeah.
So, number one is, I've seen the spec books where it says we have to file site-specific safety plan.
Mm-hmm.
So what is that for the cost, Dave? Let's say you write it. We were going to use you on inbound.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so what would you have us put an estimate for a professional to write a site-specific safety plan?
Well, of course, every job's a little different depending on the scope of work and then the contractor you're trying to satisfy. But in general, I would say the price range would be anywhere from $1,800 to $3,000 in that neighborhood, depending on the project and scope. And that's going off what I do, job sites that I've actually done.
So that can be, we always like to think in terms of an estimator sitting on a Saturday morning trying to finish up a bid and go, hey, I just found this in a safety section. I've got to put in the site-specific safety plan. Another one is actually creating a company official safety manual. Mm-hmm. What do you see? So I'm a subcontractor. I know generals have a whole different set of,
right.
And you can speak to both of them. So especially sub, what do you think the safety manual is going to cost to produce?
Well, again, depending on the number of employees and the scope of work they perform, and your case, landscaping. But you know what? You've got retaining walls probably with fall protection issues. You've got a lot of stuff out there. There's an emphasis program on landscapers right now because there's been several struck by fatalities in landscaping. I had a heat exhaustion client years ago in landscaping. Their side layers died from heat exhaustion. So you got a lot of hazards as well that people forget. We had this discussion in another meeting that usually by the time the landscapers are there, the GC's already relaxed his safety requirements because he's probably behind schedule and wanting that dirt green. And he doesn't emphasize safety to the landscapers as much. Please don't ever let that happen. I know Hermes doesn't, but other contractors, they just will and go and forget the safety at that point.
And we're fortunate we don't have any fall protection typically. Mm-hmm. We don't have any large, we don't use cranes a lot.
Mm-hmm. So your safety program in your question, again, the size of your company is different than most landscapers, but I would say a price range from $1,200 to $1,800 for your kind of company, but then with all the different scopes that GC might have, that's going to grow to $2,400 in that neighborhood, $1,200 to $2,400 depending on the size.
All right, so that's to write a safety manual that would meet OSHA standards.
Mm-hmm.
So point I'd like to make also about safety manuals is the fact that a lot of times companies do not go back and review them. They have us produce those, and they buy them, but they put them on the shelves. They should take time during their staff meetings to review certain sections of the safety manual. I have a client right now, I did a safety manual for them. And again, it needs to be specific to their industry, but they are not going back and reading it, and they're not doing any training on it. So their employees, they might be held to the standards. And the other thing about the safety manual is that if you write it down, OSHA is going to hold you to it. And so you want to make sure that you really use your safety manuals as living, breathing documents that you can refer back to, and that your employees feel comfortable enough to be able to go and find information in it, and that you live it. You don't just get it created for you and then you just put it on the shelf.
Good point, very good point.
Well, here's a big one, right? So we talked about this one, Dave. If we need a 2-year all-in safety program, let's say we have 18 guys on the site. We don't have 19 because then we got to bring in a full-time safety guy. We're going to keep it to 18 guys on a bigger job. And from start to finish, just ballpark, 18 employees, let's say our job is $1 million. What should we budget for a 2-year total turnkey safety program where you're going to come in as a consultant? I've got a safety manager, but they're not at your level of expertise. They'll do the paperwork and the OSHA logs and stuff. But what's a 2-year safety program for a subcontractor on a job? What should we budget for that?
Once a month visits, once a week visits?
Let's say a toolbox talk once a week.
Okay.
All hands safety talk once a month with documentation. What else would you have in there?
The job site audit while you're there doing the toolbox talk, you do a quick look-see, check for any deficiencies.
Is that weekly?
Same time you do the toolbox talk.
So
Yeah.
weekly
Site inspection and toolbox talks, and then a monthly safety meeting. With all that, you should have all your training in place to cover your safety program. I'll just say $950 a month.
$950 a month.
Yeah.
We should budget,
And you can go from $750 to $1250, probably depending on what consultant you use.
say times 24 months, so you're talking roughly $23,000 over the life of the project. So my estimator put that in our bid. That's the last thing he's put in there. He's putting in general conditions, And anybody got questions about that?
Wouldn't that be only during your time on site though?
What's that?
So for Eric's example, wouldn't that be only your time on site for the last 2 months, a month and a half of the project?
So let's
But
say
you're not going to spread over 24 months.
I was going to bring him in at the first, you get a contract that says you have 60 days, before you get on the site, you have to have a site-specific safety plan filed, right? I'd have to do that. Well, first I'd write my safety manual, because let's say we don't have it. We do, but let's say we don't. Then you do a site-specific safety plan, understand all my equipment, my gasoline, all that stuff. And then you come in and do my weekly toolbox talks. Is what I'm talking about, Travis, is where he's kind of being our safety guy. We don't want him full-time, because I don't think we need him full-time. But we want you to do all that paperwork, it's gotta be filed. So we can prove to the Corps of Engineers or to these high-end owners that they want a very formal safety documentation.
And this is general subcontractors with 18 people on site. As long as they're not doing crane work and shit like that, that's a general price for this service in this area. Okay?
We talked about, what if you have to go and do OSHA, a representation of OSHA hearing for us?
My fee usually, if I'm doing all that, I take care of that too. I do everything that a full-time safety guy would do. If you get a no shot, we're there. We'll fight for you at OSHA downtown, get the settlement agreement in place. Now, say you're not a client, then we'll have to work out some hourly fee. And that can range in consultants to anywhere from $65 an hour to $120 an hour. They like to gouge you when you're in front of trouble with OSHA. So it's like hiring a damn lawyer sometimes. But if you're proactive and you got somebody on staff and on retainer, I'm not going to get you more. Maybe others would, but I don't know what they charge. But I become your safety guy, which means, hey, if you got citations, I didn't do my job for a damn well rid of.
Okay.
So what are some of the training opportunities that you use for your staff? I mean, how do you train them very often? Do you Do you take them off-site? Do you train them inside, on-site? Or what are some training?
OSHA 10?
Hermes, but I see your monthly posts on Facebook, you have monthly safety meetings.
We have weekly toolbox talks per division. So commercial division, every Friday we're having a toolbox talk, we're documenting. But monthly we have a company-wide safety training. We go over a lot of different, we go over all kinds of different safety hazards. Specific to the season, specific to the jobs we're on. And what you're talking about training, Jan, we do training that is, we look at what's happening out in the market. I want to hear about these hard hats. What are these new hard hats?
Cats?
Cast hard hat, it looks more like a mountain climber's hat, it's got a strap, you got side impact. Joe can talk about this a little bit
Okay.
more.
Yeah.
You'll talk about that when you get, okay. So we talked about,
Oh, no.
huh?
He asked me for 3 samples of that.
I have one in the car if anyone wants to.
Joe's like, yeah,
That's a different animal though. I mean, that's for what you do, I would assume it's probably overkill for, it's more for guys working at heights and that could potentially swing off and then get stopped and hit a wall but they work. It's like the gloves, I don't want to get off topic, but it's like those gloves I handed out, those cost anywhere from many of my distributors, $6 to $7 a pair, and it seems like a lot when you compare it to something like these, that as Dave said, it costs 50 cents, but every hand injury, a laceration costs about $20,000. And, Kelly's company started with this glove back in 2019, this is 2016, and they've seen a massive reduction in hand injuries. And so that adds up. How many self-performing employees do you guys have? 4,700, Kelly?
Full-time employees, yeah, probably about 5,000.
Yeah, that's a lot of folks. And, so they're subcontract. But you have to factor it in to that job up front because Dunn also uses, and some other ones do too, the big brother to that one, and it's in the $10 to $12 a pair range. Again, more protection, but if you didn't factor that in, and you get on a job site, and, oh my God, we just spent $47,000 on gloves. Well, yeah, that won't break the bank, but it certainly upsets the people at the top a little bit. So.
And then you've got the guys who leave them in their truck every night and need a new pair every morning. And
That's good for my business, though. I like that. Just factor it in.
What the bigger thing that's happening, look at it from a financial standpoint. So I was telling Dave about a guy here in town, he's a roofer. He spends $170,000 a year in the safety program.
Yep.
Okay, but there's this thing called the EMR, right? Or work comp experience mod ratio.
Yep.
He has driven down his premium on his work comp by $350,000.
Yeah, so he saved on
His
it.
EMR is a .67.
Right.
If his EMR was a 1.24, he would spend $350,000 more dollars on work comp premium.
Yep.
Do you think that $170,000 safety program costs him or pays him?
It definitely pays it.
It pays him double,
It's factual.
right?
Your insurance guy, that's a good, your mod rates go down, your costs go down. It's factual. But work with your safety folks. You don't have to buy my brand, obviously I prefer that, but there's some good products out there. And that, the helmet they talked about, that's why they did it. An average hard hat costs $25, $30, but they weren't working. All a typical hard hat does is protect you from the chandelier or a bolt or something, but these things are literally crash helmets. What head injury averages about $300,000 because there's long-term disability
I've only had
involved.
2 of those.
Right.
Here's a bigger thing. So if we look at this thing called pre-qualification for estimators,
Yep.
before we can get a job, we have to be pre-qualified.
Yep.
So they've always looked at EMR, right? If EMR is a 1.0 or higher, you're probably not going to get the job. But now there's this thing called total reportable incident rates.
Yeah.
So if I get a nick, cut, or scratch on my hand, and I walk to my supervisor, I say, I need a Band-Aid, that goes on my OSHA log, and it's a reportable incident. If a glove, what do these cost?
About $6 to $7 a pair.
And how long should these last?
Typically about a week. Now, like what Kelly says, I had a guy, and this is a true story. I had a customer a contractor, and I'm not gonna name the name, because they're very, you know, you guys are in a construction business, guys and gals. It's very competitive. And this is a subcontractor, and he's in a very, very competitive side of the subcontractor business. And he was spending about $2 for a pair of cut-resistant gloves. But his guys hated them, and they wouldn't keep them on. And I kept explaining, it's worth the money. It is. It's proven fact. And he finally did switch him over, and he had a guy that keeps it on his hand when he washes his hand to keep him clean. Because they know that if they'll wear them, if they prove to the owner of the company or the guys writing the checks that, hey, I'll use this product better. So that's the biggest thing about safety. Spend the money on a product that your employees will wear, because more than anything, comfort drives compliance more than anything. It's a hard hat, a harness, a boot, a vest, a glove. I'm telling you, if it fits them and they can do their job better, they'll wear it. And if they wear it, it's proven that they're not going to get hurt. And that's how we've done so well with that glove.
And there's more to it than that is that we might not be able to get a job, get pre-qualified for a job if our TRIR is too high,
Yeah.
or if our EMR is too high.
Right.
We could fail to get a job, $1 million job.
Just because of that.
Just, it's a factor. It's not,
Yeah.
you don't usually lose a job.
Solely because.
What happens then is, and this is where I'm gonna have Dave chime in again, if my TRIR is too high, my EMR is too high, you can get the job, but you need a full-time safety guy on site, a non-working. So what's that worth? Dave, you have people that could come in on a 2-year job and be my full-time safety guy on site, non-working, you can't touch a tool or
Right.
a piece of equipment.
Don't worry, you won't.
So
You don't want them to.
that's a big scary number, because the guy says, all right, Eric, you can have the job, $1 million job, but because of your EMR being 1.6, you need a full-time safety guy. Or I have 19 guys on site, so what's that worth, Dave, to have a full-time safety guy?
Again, the price broadens from 65 an hour to 95, depending on the complexity.
You told me some numbers the other day about per year.
Okay.
To have a full-time safety guy on site for a year.
Usually that's per hour though, because you start doing overtime or Saturday work, we get the same time and a half and double time.
So you're getting $90,000.
Yeah.
So if I gotta bring up, if I'm negotiating a job, and the guy says, you can have the job, but you gotta have safety day, put a guy on site for 2 years, I gotta add $160,000 in my bid. He goes, all right, you're out, next. Right, so this is real stuff that's gonna help us either win jobs, get jobs, or have costs. What we're trying to help you guys do is identify there's some hidden costs here. If you're not reading the safety specs up front,
Right.
there could be some costs that either lose you a job or you're gonna pay for it in the end. We take them a lot more serious than 20 years ago. This stuff wasn't even being talked about.
No, not even, barely
Well,
10 years ago.
And I want you also to remember, and I don't know how I'm not a numbers man, obviously, I'm in safety, but what happens when you don't have it in your job and you get a $50,000 OSHA fine? It's very common. I got a job downtown, it hadn't even started, and I got $108,000 for it, because some guys were scraping the walls they shouldn't have been scraping. But they hadn't even turned their shovel yet, $108,000 in OSHA fines. They're just getting started. OSHA's will be back.
Yep.
OSHA's been very aggressive lately. And how do you, all of a sudden you didn't have money for a trench box, well now you got a $50,000 trenching violation. But you should have maybe had the money in that job, right? And I can go on and on about this, because I get it all the time. Didn't have money for a security fence. Now your builder's risk insurance agent comes around and says, you're not securing your job site, we're going to raise your premiums, okay? You don't have cameras on your job sites. Most of this is builder's risk, and then your liability insurance risk guys come around. That's what they want to see. You piss off your insurance company, it'll cost you a lot more than a safety program.
Well, and Janet had another slide, in one of the future slides, and I don't want to get ahead, but it talks about just the PR aspect of it. Your general contractor, especially if you're a sub, doesn't want bad press if one of his or her subs dies from falling from scaffold or cuts his hand off. Because what's the news? What's social media like? We hear about every freaking thing whether we want to or not. If somebody dies, every news station from here to Chicago is going to hear about it. And that's bad PR, because when they go to the job site, it may not show the signs of the subcontractor, but the general contractor signs all over that. So it's guilt by association. That's bad publicity. And that's another thing that comes into factor. And you know, your safety, go ahead,
No,
your
go-
safety folks should know ahead of time what the general contractor requires, what level of cut that requires. Then your safety folks knows generally how much that's gonna cost. Like Dave was saying, he knows what the gloves cost and what they're gonna be used for.
Typically, an experience mod's a 3-year rolling average as well. So that monkey's on your back for 3 years
Yes.
until you get that down. It doesn't just change instantaneously. So once you've got a high violation or a high experience mod, you're hooked with that for 3 years.
From the end of the injury payment.
Correct.
So if
Yeah.
the injury lasts 2
Correct.
years, it then follows you for 2 years, it ends, and then goes 3 more years.
Oh,
So it doesn't just stop. It keeps accumulating over the 3-year rolling average. So
See how a safety program starts.
a high experience mod doesn't just disappear overnight.
No, you're right.
You got a 1.6.
Let me, and kind of tie this all in real quick
Yeah,
here.
but-
You talked about media coverage. Can anybody remember, a couple years ago, it was on every news channel, even in the nation, biggest fire in Johnson County's history?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
All that because somebody didn't have a fire watch in their budget. Fire watch. You know, that guy stands there and does absolutely no work, doesn't pick up tools. He's out of business. He was a 3rd-tier subcontractor. The 2nd-tier subcontractor's insurance got ate up. The general contractor's insurance got ate up. The developer's contractor's insurance got ate up. They all have to answer to insurance companies for a long time now.
There were several factors in that because they were sweating pipe without fire protection or any kind of safety on site. It was a big, yeah. There are a lot of people took the hit for that.
Well, the one that caused the fire was a welder. That's-
Yeah.
I'm on that project. And it just goes to show you, if you don't have it in your budget to have a fire watch, don't do fire work or hot work. Simple deal. If you don't like the OSHA rules, maybe McDonald's isn't very minded.
We were talking about consulting, Dave, and one thing that you said struck me that if someone does have an injury on site, you send someone home with work comp, and you know this really well. If you sit at home and draw on work comp, it's racked up as EMR. But you told me you could consult them and bring that guy back on line duty. Some companies don't even know how to don't even think that. They think, oh, he's home for 6 months, he can be answering the phone,
Absolutely.
right? So you're a
Fire
consultant.
watch.
You're a fire watch. They can push the elevator button up and down, right?
Yep, there's always something for them to do. Most people think that's a cost, I'm paying them to do nothing. No, sitting on the couch is costing you money.
Yeah.
Yeah, compare your work comp premium on a high EMR, it's a 3-year rolling average, to paying the guy whatever his salary, and they're happy and productive, right?
And every time he sees a Brown and Crouppen commercial, then he finally calls them, you're gonna wish he was pushing buttons in your elevator.
Right.
Or watching hot work, or shuffling your SDS
So the
seats.
point is this, we're talking about cost, right? If we bring you in as a consultant, we have you present to helping us make those kind of decisions, right? You're a consultant, that kind of thing.
And any consultant can do that. I'm not trying to just sell me here, but any of these guys can help you as well. I just encourage you all. I know most of you in the room, I'm talking to the wrong people because you already got an excellent safety program. Carry this on with your subs. Share the information with them. But it's all good stuff. How you sell it in the bidding process and the estimating process, that's the hard part. But if you don't have it in the job, and something bad happens, you might not have any more projects to bid on.
So we just landed a job, Dave. If you're the OSIP representative, I didn't even know that until I won the job. So what does that mean? What do you do as an OSIP representative? Are you doing, I know you're doing, if there's a reported incident, you come in and inspect, right?
Oh, yeah.
What else do you do as an OSIP, CSIP? What else do you do for that?
Pretty much for like any sub on that project, the safety guy's like your safety guy. He'll do anything a safety guy's supposed to do. Hopefully there's not accidents you gotta investigate, but he's doing preventative measures, the tool launch talks, the job site inspections, observing work behaviors, changing that work behavior. So we don't have to worry about those accidents. But the GC's required a certain threshold of manpower gets exceeded. And they earn their keep. I know you don't realize it. You never realize how much safety is really saving you if you don't have an accident or you don't have something bad. And you're you say, oh shit, why do we have a safety guy? But we can go on and on about examples, but several companies have hired me once they got their reportable incident rate is too high to where a KCP&L, they've gotten real aggressive at shutting down contractors who had 20-year contracts. They know their power plant's better than their own employees, but they had a couple of hand injuries that gloves would have prevented. Now they said, okay, you can't bid our work anymore for our safety department. They said, well, how about if we bring in a third-party safety consultant, like you were describing, and all of a sudden they got their job back. But that's not all. You gotta quit having injuries, okay? And that's the hard part. But you gotta inspire your workforce, and that's what we do. So far we've saved a couple of contractors with gigs just like that. Years ago, a big excavator in town, a great company of mine, they had a terrible, 17 lost time accidents, 2 of them were life flight helicopters, no fatalities, thank God. But poor OSHA inspection as a result of all that cost them a lot of money that year. Their EMR shot up for 3 or 4 years, cost them over $250,000 a year, each one of those years. And he now realizes, because we've got excellence, we were winning safety awards 4 years later. Yeah, so he realized that safety does pay, and it doesn't cost you. How you guys get it into your bids and your estimating is the difficult part. And I don't think anybody up here can answer that. Each job's different. But I know an EMR that shoots your insurance rate, you gotta have that in there, right? So that might blow you out of the water on some job, you gotta pay so much for insurance. So if you just add that safety cost in there right now to prevent that from happening. Okay? Like I said, how do you estimate an OSHA fine? The duration of the project, they're probably gonna come back again. I've had several sites hit 2, 3, and 4 times during the duration of that project. So spend the money up front. We put a full-time safety guy on that same project. They didn't have any OSHA citations after we had a full-time guy there. Then all of a sudden I get the call. Dave, I can't get anybody to help pay for this and we don't have it in the job, so they shut us down and OSHA came right back the next week. No, we didn't call. But it's what the job site looks like. Anyways, guys, safety does pay. Okay. What else we got here?
So oftentimes you have to account for rescuers on site. We talked about that a little bit earlier with the confined space. So sometimes you just have to have someone just there. I know there was a job that I was going to bid on with, and I asked Dave to help me with it. They were talking about, it was a water, we had to have a water rescue. We had to have a boat. We had to have a boat, and we had to have someone, life jackets and all of that, and it was just too costly to actually bid on that particular project. So again, you have to think about that up front before you, you know, what life safety measures you're gonna have to have in place in order to move forward. Dave, you got any comments on that?
I've got a dam project going right now, John Redmond Reservoir, the guy sits in the boat all day long. And, yeah, and he ain't allowed to fish either. Fall protection, they got some great guardrail systems out there that'll save you some money in the long run versus 2x4s that you throw away after every job. I really like the new ones. I told you about that security fencing. Again, this huge project in the heart of Johnson County with these big, you know, the Johnson County sidewalks that are big enough you can drive a car down, and because they got so many joggers and bicycler people, cyclists I guess they're called. Obviously I haven't rode one in a while, but you know, I said, dude, we gotta get some security fencing up over there. Don't have it in the job. Are you kidding me? I thought it'd be a requirement to build Johnson. All the hoops they had to jump through to build this place, and they just have to have a security fence up. Your signage, very important that you have adequate signage, not just one do not enter sign. You gotta have them per code, which is danger, construction area, authorized personnel only, every 150 feet. Ron and Crouppen knows that, by the way. Cameras in the guard, sometimes you have to, if you're shutting off a sprinkler system to an occupied medical facility, you gotta bring in a security guard at night as fire watch, all night long, or a professional fire watch. There's all kinds of things in healthcare construction if you're doing any of that you gotta have in your bid to cover. A lot of stuff to cover. Not to mention just the routine training. Everybody's gotta be 10-hour training. A lot of companies all have it, some don't. Some of our subs don't. Make sure they don't miss that in their bids. Okay? Sometimes it's getting more popular that the foreman or the superintendent has to have 30-hour training. If that's a requirement, okay, make sure you consider that. You gotta pay that employee for that 30 hours of training too, by the way. And a PA-70E, that's a lot of PPE, right? So there's all kinds of costs out there that you gotta factor into your bids. Any quick responses or questions you might have for me? I'm not going anywhere, I'm just stepping aside for a little bit. There you go, good man.
I've talked about a lot of the stuff that I was gonna go over. We just talked about, OSHA requires that anywhere that you can have a hand injury, OSHA requires any kind of in-place safety programs in place where the injury may occur, not just for the hands, but anything. You folks know that. So one of the things, if you can't eliminate the hazard, you have to provide the appropriate PPE, whether it's fall protection, head protection, eye protection, and hand protection. So, we talked about it. I talked about, the trends in the industry, especially construction, is to get better quality. And it's not just for safety. I mean, it truly is to prevent the hand injuries. There's production issues too. It's proven, and I can show you the studies that my competitors and I have done, that it improves hand production because they're wearing a product that keeps them safe and allows them to do their job better. And what I talked about earlier is make sure you work with your safety folks. I know Dave and Janet both said that. Make sure that you work with them because that's what their job is. They understand what the risks are, what it's going to be used, and they consult with guys like me. I do free training all the time. If you're starting to have injuries that pop up, get us involved. I do hand protection training, I do fall protection training. That's what I've been doing for the last 20 plus years. So that's what I do. And that's really all I've got. I mean, I covered a lot of it when I was talking before, which I typically do because so any questions about general PPE? I know that you talked about head protection. That's the big trend, especially for folks working at heights, spending that extra money on head protection. I mean, I deal with a mechanical contractor who had a female employee that fell backwards off a ladder because it got bumped. She did nothing wrong. Got bumped, she hit her head and was in a hospital for a week and a half. So she almost died. And if they would have had the hard hat, the climbing helmet, it probably would have helped avoid that, or at least reduce it so it wasn't so major. Same thing with fall protection. Make sure that you provide the adequate anchor points. And what I did in the hospital job that Dave was talking about, they put that in the budget, especially if the engineer's involved. At the front in design and specking, they provide the fall protection during the job because they understand that once it's complete, OSHA's got new rules for like window washers. Well, they have to have adequate fall protection, and you can't just go start drilling into the Kansas State Capitol building or the Marriott Hotel downtown. There's structural issues. So the engineers are starting, and architects are starting to get involved in it on the front side and putting that in. And that's what a company that I represent does. They help that engineering side. So you can budget it ahead of time. And I just got an order for some of those anchors today, and that stuff was budgeted 2 years ago. But they finally got to that part of the job. So again, make sure you work with your safety folks. If you don't have one, consult Janet, Dave, and folks like them that can help you out. Because you certainly don't want, there's one thing you don't want to be surprised about is the usage, for sure. And that's not that common. It's usually, once you get started, your organization, the culture started, they get used to how much they're doing.
Thank you.
But what you don't want to have to budget for is, God forbid, an injury and then an OSHA fine. Like Dave said, I do a lot of fall protection stuff. Once something like that happens, they're going to be lurking around all the time because they're stuck with it. And I'm not even talking about the insurance mod rates and all the costs associated with that. I'm just talking about OSHA fines and just all of the other direct costs involved with it. So, any questions about personal protective equipment, safety stuff? Yes.
So, a lot of these things have really increased in the last 5 to 10 years. So over the next 5 years, what do you think the trends are that are coming in the next 5 years we should be watching for?
More of the same. You got to remember, OSHA went from, it's self-funded organization now. So the way they generate revenue to pay for their jobs is to levy fines. And about the only people there's nobody exempt unless you're another arm of the government, because they don't want to take, theoretically, tax dollars out of one and give it to another. But if you're in the private sector, That's what they're doing. And insurance carriers too, they don't want to pay out more for claims. It's between OSHA and insurance, it's driving more on the safety side, in my opinion. Don't you think, Dave and Janet, than anything else?
Now, that and what I like about the larger contractors here in town and all over, they're making up programs because they see their own statistics
Yep.
where accidents are happening, hand injuries, so they're implementing 100% gloves. They're going after ladders now, aren't they? Ladders last programs, because 34% of all work comp claims in construction are ladder related. So they're going to podium deck ladders, probably Dunn is going to. So is Mortensen already. Some of them are just saying use a scaffold, use an aerial lift versus a ladder, because so many people are not using ladders properly.
Well, and we've got a system that the manufacturer that I represented on one of their sites downtown, again, to Dave's point, they've developed ladder last policies because they are dangerous, and insurance is driving it. They don't want to pay out claims for stinking ladder accidents, and they happen all the time. We do ladder training. It doesn't matter. You fall off your ladder at home cleaning your gutters. They're very dangerous objects because people misuse them and they're not in good condition. But there was a job site downtown, a new hotel, I'm not going to name the name, but they decided no more job site built ladders. Well, the systems we put in place, it's basically a very strong stair system that you can reuse. But, they cost about $4,000 to $5,000 a piece. That's about probably, I would say, 15 times what a job site built ladder cost. But again, you have to incorporate that cost up front, otherwise you get hit with it later, yes.
Do you have a catalog of all of these items so that if you were looking at your job and you're going to estimate that you're going to have those railings across there, you can estimate how much what it's going to cost to put up. So you have a catalog that you look through, you say I have so many guys out there and I'm going to have gloves for them. Or I'm going to buy the hard hats and have my name on them.
Right.
So that, they can be identified. And so if, without a catalog or something to look at.
You have no idea.
Right.
Thank God for the internet though, because that'll get you more good stuff than bad stuff usually. It will. Distributors can you can give them a list of stuff, and I've got probably a dozen distributors here in town that sell my products that can give you that ahead of time. And they're good resources to, and Janet,
Get with Janet. She's a bulldog. She doesn't ever sleep. She'll
Never sleep.
you tell her what you want, she'll get it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned ladders last. What have you seen people use on those jobs to help with the cost?
Either lifts.
Okay, I see that.
Again, that's going from going to Home Depot or Lowe's and buying an $80 step ladder to now I've got an $8,000 lift. But again, that $80 step ladder probably costs 3 injuries. So lifts, personal lifts, just the little battery powered ones. Yeah, but even the little individual ones with a cage around it this big that'll go 20 feet in the air.
Genie lifts.
Yeah, Genie lifts. There's JLG brands. And then on the ladders, the ones that I was talking about, like they would have their carpenters build a ladder to go from floor to floor. And, now they go with this thing called a pair of stairs, and it's an aluminum system, and it's stairs with handles, and it's at the right angle, so it's not a ladder anymore, it's stairs. It's almost like a ship's ladder, yes.
I heard you talking about how some contractors have said that they didn't have any budget or whatnot. I was wondering if you guys would ever consider going to the source, going to the architect and telling them how to specify.
Yes, doing that more and more. I'm getting involved in that more and more because especially, not just on the hand protection, it's more on the fall protection side. There's a very old bridge downtown it's an old railroad and road bridge that I was up on, again, that's owned by the railroad, but they were speccing all of that in ahead of time, and the PE had never really done anything with fall protection before. And he goes, how much does a system like this cost? And I got some quotes from one of my distributors, and he goes, wow, that was more than I thought about it, and it usually is.
Yeah, so when you got it in the specs, and they say that not having it in their budget is not an excuse.
Right.
Even if they don't have it in their budget, or if they say they didn't.
It was there at the beginning.
They have to do it anyway. So that'd be a big step, I think, in our industry.
Yeah.
I spoke at a lunch and learn for NBSJ architects. We drove that, and I don't care what drives it as long as I get to speak in front of other groups like yourselves that I normally don't. I'm trying to get the safety word out to any organization involved in the construction process. These architects called me because two of their architects were standing at a ladder attached to some scaffolding, gonna climb up and do their quality control thing, where the developer went ahead of them. The developer guy, you know, they come out in their khaki pants and their open-toed shoes, and they think they own a joint because they do. But, and he climbed up it and fell from that over their heads to his death. So when those architects witnessed that, they said, hey, we need to get some safety training. It took something like that to make an architect firm get some safety training knowledge and consider safety in their processes. It was my perfect opportunity to bring up the first fall protection plan, actually the first set of OSHA safety rules. It was like, I never remember very well. Deuteronomy 22:8, man shall build a parapet wall around his house to prevent bloodshed. The first fall protection plan.
2,000 years, or more than that, probably, yeah.
And unfortunately, these same architects don't design an adequate parapet wall. That's 39 inches minimum height after roofing products installed. But anyways, no, we continue to try to get the word out to everybody involved in the construction process. So we include safety in their design, engineer out the hazards at that point if they can, and they can block that way if they try.
You know, because back to that point, to your point too about the engineers and architects up front, there's a lot of buildings in town, OSHA just define their rules. A lot of the rules are very dated and very vague when it comes to especially things like fall protection. And so for almost 50 years, no one knew, you know, the building owners, when they needed fall protection. At what point closest to the edge, you know, do I need it? Well, they just defined it a year and a half, 2 years ago. If I'm within 15 feet of that edge to take a fall on a flat roof, I have to have some sort of fall protection. What if this is a 50-year-old building and every stinking cooling tower or air conditioning unit is 10 foot from the edge? Well, guess what? Your maintenance folks get up there, and they're going to be getting up there for the life of that building, and every time they get up there, they're going to have fall protection. So if you didn't incorporate that up front, it's like an add-on. If you ever built a house, what does the home builder say when you're almost done with the house and your wife says, like mine did, oh, I really didn't want the bathroom there, I wanted it over there. I'm saying, oh my God, I'm gonna have to get a second job to pay for this because any add-on is gonna be more money. It's not easy to do that, so.
Need more pair of gloves.
There you go.
I've learned from experience because I get a lot of, so my own subcontractors scope of work.
Yeah.
And I've often neglected to say, I need an OSHA dug hole.
Right.
We build our big, buried fuel tanks. And if I don't specify I need an OSHA hole, he's just gonna dig a hole big enough to
Yep.
bury those tanks.
Yep.
And it's not gonna be slanted, it's not gonna have an excess out. As I don't specify, and I have learned that because it's happened. It's scary.
And even if you just say build it per OSHA standards, they'll stretch those standards.
They will.
Still gotta-
I know your business
So
very well.
I've gotta be very specific in my scopes, or barricades, or with those fences, I've learned, I've assumed they would be included, but no. I've had to put buses around
Oh, yeah.
barricades before.
Right, I
So
believe
it's,
it.
it's, yeah, a lot of detail. It's important.
I can't believe you didn't have a fence on that job. Just the insurance cost of the attractive nuisance
Well,
is crazy.
what drove me nuts is now they've got one, because I'm sure their builder Chris came around. And I can't tell you what job said. I'd sure like to.
There's multiple ones I've seen.
Insurance cost for attractive nuisance as a random person walking onto your job site. Like some kid climbing a piece of construction equipment because they can do the access.
I took some legal courses when I was younger. Some pre-law courses, and there was one of the cases that we studied was a contractor was on the schoolyard and they had burned some of their wood and whatever. Well, they had a pile of ashes that was still very hot. It looked like a sand pile.
Oh no.
Kids come along on bicycles and go jump the sand pile. And the kid ended up melting into the ashes. It was, yeah, so protection, gates, fences, signs.
Sounds like your teacher is like my teacher, my senior teacher.
Yeah, he made us look at all those graphic photos of these, yeah, it's nasty.
Any other questions, comments, concerns?
So I'll throw out something. Anybody here, company CAM? Raise your hand if you're a company CAM. Okay, cool. It's a cool app. It's $12 a month per user, I think. And it allows you to take pictures with your cell phone or your tablet and then do instant annotations, graphic overlays, arrows, boxes, circles, all kinds of different things to allow you to develop, safety plans, rendezvous points, marshalling points. So as part of your safety program, I think every company should investigate company CAM.
We used it.
Yeah, company CAM. Yeah, I was part of the beta program several months ago, and it just went live 3 months ago. And it's an amazing app, and I recommend it to everybody that I have an opportunity to.
We used it for, we started using it for our guys in the field that was doing repair work, so we could have the before and after pictures for the owner. But what it worked into was not only the safety stuff, but a guy's out on the job site. One of the worst about this, of course, I've come from Dayton and had to carry roll plans with them, but now they're supposed to have tablets. But they get out in the field and they come up to a condition or a detail and they don't know what to do. Well, they take out that company CAM app and go like that, and within seconds, it's on your computer at your desktop.
And all the stakeholders that are involved can also be part of that photo album, and it can also predict exactly where you're at. So you activate it, and it says, are you at 7913 West 87th Street? You just say yes, or you change the address to the address that you're at. So it's really, really quickly deployable.
We had it for every guy that was a lead guy at some time. Every one of them used it.
I like that. I'm gonna have to check that out.
They got a 30-day, I think it might be 15-day trial now, but it's definitely worth it.
I like that. Thanks for sharing.
You can archive and invite people to your albums. You can download and share. It's an amazing process. I don't know how they do it all for $12 a month, to be honest with you, because I know how much all that server space costs.
That sounds good. Thanks. One last thing I want to share with you. This is, I'm going to try and maneuver this. This is on the OSHA side. Dave, I'm trying to move it.
Is that on the website?
This is the OSHA website, so I'm trying to move this down a little bit. Oh, there it is. I couldn't see it over there. Okay, great. Right there is perfect. So this is an opportunity for you to actually kind of estimate your cost of your injuries and illnesses. Anyone ever seen this before? Oh, I see a couple heads nodding. So basically, it just says, safety pays. This is a program that uses your company's profit margin, the average cost of an injury, and any indirect cost multiplier to the project amount for the sales of a company, and then you can actually generate the cost of those items. And so this is really cool. So you can come here, and this shows you the direct cost of injury. So here we're going to select the injury type. Now I've already done it just for the sake of demonstration. So I selected amputation. Yeah, no, that'd be great. Yeah, that'd be great. Okay. And then you can go in there, and you don't have to put in this either injury type or the workers' comp cost. Typically, we say there's a 3% profit margin, and then we're just going to enter one injury here. And then it's going to actually calculate it. And this comes up with an estimated cost of what this is going to be. So for amputation, one instance, the direct cost is about 80, is that 87?
Yeah, it's like, well, yeah, 88,
Yeah.
almost 90,000.
Almost 90,000. And then the indirect cost is over $97,000. So this is a really, really cool tool that will help you. You can put in any type of injury and it will show you, and you put in your number that you might anticipate having, and this will give you some really good information about how to estimate some of those injury costs.
And this is non-litigation based, so
Right.
you can
Right.
imagine if somebody dies drowning group and
Absolutely. So I wanted to just share this site with you so you can take this back and use it as you are working as well. What questions can we answer for you?
Already?
So we are excited to have been able to have this opportunity. We'll stick around for a couple minutes if you have any additional questions or would like for us to share any resources with you. We'd be more than happy to. So other than that, we're all done. Thank you.